This
Happy Trails
conference will now
ended
be
tomorrow.
recorded.
Please silence your phones now so that they're not going off during our session. It's very interrupting. Okay, my name is Vicki Griffiths and I'm the chairperson of the election committee. I'll be your monitor and I will be assisted by my election committee members. Darla Gessler will be, she's vice president or vice chair, and she's sitting up front and she is going to be the timer. And then she's going to keep things running real smoothly so we can get it done today. And then we have Jim Blair, who will be assisting me with the questions. And then we have Karen Stewart, who you met at the door. She's running around. So if you have any more questions, feel free to come up and get a piece of paper and write them down. We cannot have you coming up and asking questions because it just is too time consuming. And we are limited on time, trust me. We are assisted in our work by Mike Nice. He's the operational manager, as well as Marie Bichon, who is our board liaison. I don't know where she's at, but anyway, she's in here somewhere. She's running around. There she is. Our forum today will be from 9 to 11. And you were handed a packet of information on each candidate as you came in the door, and that gives you a lot of information about the person, but you will be able to hear more about their viewpoints of how they would run on the board of directors. So we have in alphabetical order, we have Jackie Adamson, we have Cindy Evans, we have Marla Fences, and then we have Barbara Fugelberg, and we have Bill Rhodes, and Gary Sale, and Ron Woodward. The rules of the procedure are as follows. Each candidate will have the opportunity to give you up to a 3-minute introduction on why they would be a good board member. Our chairperson, Darla, will be keeping the time on this. So you have up to 3 minutes for the first introductions. And then after that, it will be 2 minutes. And she will give you a hand up when you've got only 30 minutes, or excuse me, 30 seconds left. 30 minutes, boy, would be here all day. So we're going to begin in rotating fashion. We're going to begin in the with the first alphabet, Jackie Adamson, and carry through the rest of the candidates. So would you please introduce yourself and tell us why you are running for the board?
Good morning, I'm Jackie Adamson. I am from Wenatchee, Washington. I've been a resident here at Happy Trails since June of 2022. I visited Happy Trails once. I went home, put my house on the market, packed up the few things that I wanted to bring with me. I left a place where I'd been for 26 years. I am a full-time year-round resident, and I'm currently involved in the singles group, arts and crafts, and I'm also a volunteer on the communication committee. I have 9 years of experience on homeowners association boards. I have experience including working with property managers, contractors, homeowners, and other board members. With that experience, I do feel I would make a very good board member. I want to work with the results of the long range planning survey because your input matters to me. With the information provided, we know what you want, what you're interested in, and we have very good goals to review and try to maintain. I believe the most pressing issues facing the board right now are communication, safety, and attention to the homeowners' issues and concerns. So I'm going to be asking for your vote for me to the board of directors. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Cindy Evans, and many of you may know me from my work at the Chuck Wagon last year. Becky and I teamed up to keep the Chuck Wagon open while we looked for the new tenants. I was the person who was responsible for annoying you each day with the blast that came out, letting you know what was going on at the Chuck Wagon. And I will tell you honestly, I was very amazed and very humbled by the response to those blasts. I was even more humbled by the support that you gave to the Chuck Wagon. Together, Becky and I were able to retire the debt and leave money in the bank to the benefit of the resort. I feel like I have been getting ready for this day for about 35 years now. I worked for 25 of those years with the March of Dimes and worked with our local boards in California, Texas, and Minnesota to develop budgets, strategic plans, and execute events that raised anywhere up to and above $1 million. My work with our volunteers taught me many lessons that I believe will serve me well as a board member. Prior to my retirement, I worked with a group of very dedicated volunteers who made it possible to provide a free meal to our community. I organized that effort. I wrote the grant that got it started, so recruited all the volunteers to manage that program, and we had a 7-year run. It was just wonderful to see, and it continued even after my retirement and the time that I left Minnesota. A couple of years after my retirement, I decided I was ready to go back to work. So I took a work camping position in a little tiny town down in the panhandle of Florida. And about a week before I was to start, Hurricane Michael wiped out that town. So we got down there, I think about 3 days after they got electricity back to the camp. I worked with FEMA, I worked with the volunteer board there, I worked with their bookkeeping. I did a variety of tasks that helped them get back up on their feet and serving the community once again. Sorry, I got to keep notes to keep on track or I'll blow my time limit. I really enjoy working with volunteers and I really enjoy working with strategic planning. And I think the strategic planning that's happening now and will continue to happen is going to be absolutely critical to Happy Trails. It's going to define us, who we are today and who we want to be tomorrow. I think this is the single most exciting thing to me when I think about why I want to be on the board. There are going to be challenges. There are always challenges. But my work with volunteers has taught me that if we work together and we work together towards a common goal, that we will succeed. I think, again, the work that Becky and I did, we came together. I don't think either one of us independently thought we were going to open the Chuck Wagon, but we got together and said, why not? And we made it happen. I'll admit, sorry, time's up. Oops, sorry. I'm done, thank you.
Okay, let's see if I can talk into this thing. My name's Marla Festinice. I live at 2323. I moved and rented here 2022 in May, and I decided that this was my forever home. So I purchased in July, and I love it here. I love everything that Happy Trails has to offer. I feel like everybody here is my family and everybody that works here. So, and I am alone. My husband passed away in 2021. My husband and I moved from California to Prescott, and we bought property in 1998. We lived up there. I was on the HOA. I was on the roads committee. I was on the architectural committee. Eventually, I went to the volunteer fire department, became a volunteer firefighter. Then I was the secretary. Then I became one of the board members. The one thing that I've noticed in a lot of my positions is I have had to follow the Arizona revised statutes. And so there was a lot to do. Eventually, when I no longer ran for the board for the fire department, I became their secretary till they could find somebody full time. I started a small business in about 2014 up there, an antique business. But in between there, I was also on other, and I had worked, forgive me, I didn't write it down. I was trying to go off the tip of my head. I was an administrator assistant for the county supervisor of Yavapai County. And that gave me so much experience on top of the fire department when it came to rules and regulations, Arizona revised statutes, how to run meetings, how to put committees together, you name it, we did it. Spending lots of money, writing grants, that's what I did. Then I also worked for a US senator, which also led me to help a lot of veterans. And that meant a lot to me. I've just been involved in a lot of city, county, state, and federal levels, whether it be volunteering or whether it be actually at work. So all of the time that I was on any type of committee or HOA or board, it was always always oversaw by the Attorney General with the Arizona Revised Statutes. Why do I want to be your board member? Because I love the place that we live in. I want to see more things. I would love to see more involvement of some volunteers and maybe some more committees. And I just want to keep my forever home the way and make it even better. I don't want it to get, okay, I got this, so I've got to stop. So I am going to ask you for my vote, Marla Festanese. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. We all appreciate that you're here, and I'm sure will ask us some very thought-provoking questions. I'm Barbara Fugelberg. I think many of you have met me before. I'm currently a board member. I've been on the board for 6 years. It was a difficult decision to run for the board again. I've been telling my husband all along that I wasn't going to run. He saw me filling out the application. We had the conversation. The next day he said, after I turned it in, he said, "You're running for the board?" So, but I understand that you can hear me, and where my husband doesn't necessarily always do that. I've been a member of this community. I've been an owner since 2003. My parents were here. I'm a second generation Happy Trails resident. I retired 11 years ago, so I've really only been active in the community since then. I believe this is a unique community, very unique, unlike any of those things that many of us live at home. I live out on 5 acres. I never see my neighbors. Now I see all of you all the time, and I love the friendliness of it. It reminds us of the small towns that my husband and I grew up, both he in North Dakota and me in Wisconsin. I believe that the board, we've seen really some wonderful transition in the boards over the years. Every person who served on this board provides absolutely wonderful skills and abilities to make this board better and to make our community better. And I believe in the 6 years that I've been on this board, I've been able to demonstrate that. I believe that every board should look like the community. If I look out here, there are a fair number of women and a few men. So currently our board has got a fair number of women and a few men, but we don't have any Canadians on it. But I do think that any board should reflect the community. It should reflect those who've been here a long time and those who've been here a short period of time. I personally, my career has been pretty much just involved in working with teams and team development and being able to adhere to standards, both local and national. And that I think that as a board member, you've been able to see that I remain calm under pressure, that I treat all residents with respect, and that I really try to look forward. One of the main reasons that I wanted to run for the board again has to do with the long-range plan. That is something that the boards within the last 3 years we've been talking about. Steve Deal, the current board member, and Kay Egley were really instrumental in making us realize that it's something that we needed to do. But I had the opportunity to really engage the consultant to do this. So I look at that the current board has given birth to the long range process, and I'd like to see at least graduate from high school. So I hope that I can seek your vote. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm William Rose. I've been in Happy Trails since 1997. Started property in February of 1997 from Seattle, Washington. My resume this morning is going to be fairly short. I've been involved in just about everything in Happy Trails, from the development of areas in the resort, design reviews since 1998, the Building and Grounds Committee for years. My background was I was a general contractor in Seattle, Washington, building homes, churches, and schools, and eventually became the superintendent of construction for Park Department of Bellevue, Washington, and was promoted to a project manager there, developing fire stations, police, library, and so forth. I want to serve on the board of directors. I already have 6 years of board experience here in Happy Trails and served as treasurer for 6 years. And I would really love to get involved again. I didn't run after 1999 because of my wife's health. She has since passed. I have a lot of free time on my hands. Thank you very much, and I hope that I can serve you.
Hi, I'm Gary Sell. Hi, I'm Gary Sell. I moved to Arizona from Minnesota. I grew up in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and I was blessed to have a great childhood. In addition to great parents, I lived in a great community. I had great friends, and plenty of activities to participate in. I don't know if you see a trend coming here. Anyhow, after graduation from college or from high school, I joined the Navy. In the Navy, I was an operations specialist. One of my qualifications was started in the Navy, where I was trained to identify situations, analyze situations, and provide recommendations. That carried on after I returned to Minnesota. In college, I got involved in DECA, Distributive Education Clubs of America. I served 1 year as a president of the local chapter, and I served a year as a vice president of the Minnesota DECA. So I have some parliamentary procedure experience, not a expert, but I do have some knowledge in that. I carried my training from the Navy into that, and which was, identifying a problem, analyzing a problem, and providing recommendations. After school, my professional career was mainly in Chicago area. I held several management and executive positions, and I carried through the same philosophy. Identify a situation, analyze the situation, and provide recommendations. You might see a trend there too. I don't know what I'm going to do with the other 28 minutes of my notes, but in closing, I moved to Happy Trails after living in Arizona for 8 years because I recognize it as a community that had plenty of amenities and activities. And I want to join the board, not because I have an agenda or I don't have any reasons other than the fact that I want to continue the amenities and the activities in Happy Trails. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ron Woodward, and I'm originally from Tillamook, Oregon, little farming town, and you may know it for the cheese and the ice cream and all that we produced up there. I'm a son of a farmer. I left there back in the early 60s to be part of the military establishment, not voluntarily, but of their choice. Spent 24 years in the Air Force, another 24 years working at the National Intelligence University in Washington, D.C., teaching in the master's program and in the training program, teaching warning analysts how to think in structured ways, how to lay out problems, how to look at possible solutions, and how to arrive at the best course of action. We've been here since 2018. Prior to 2018, my wife and I were spending our winters in Yuma. And after discovering Surprise, we never went back to Yuma because the wind doesn't blow here like it does in Yuma. I waited a couple of years before I got involved in the board, and I've been on the board for the last 2 years as vice president. I believe that there are many things here that are underway now that need to be completed. I believe very strongly in our way of life that we have chosen. And when I ran 2 years ago, I made this promise, and I will make this promise again. I will treat every question that you have with respect. I will get an answer to your question. And most importantly, I will never lie to you. I will tell you the truth. I will not engage in rumors. I will not post things on Facebook that are detrimental to this resort. I want to see happiness brought back to Happy Trails. We have some wonderful people here. As I drive my golf cart, I wave to people. And when my kids came down, they said, "Do you know all of those people?" And I said, "Yeah, we live together. This is a community." So we'll have an opportunity to address your questions. Please ask your questions that you have, and let us wrestle with those questions and give you the best possible answer that we can provide for you. Thank you for coming out this morning.
I want to thank all of you in the audience for turning in so many different questions. Although we're not going to have enough time to address all of them, I would like to say one thing about the Chuck Wagon Sanctuary Cafe. That would be those questions should be directed to the current board at the We're Listening sessions or at the board meetings, something like that, because we can't address this with the new candidates that are coming on board, okay? So we really appreciate all the different questions. First question, and we'll begin with Jackie. And we're going to rotate after that. But this question, the current board of directors has been meeting increasingly in executive session. That is behind closed doors. Do you agree with this activity? If not, how will you make the business of the resort more open and transparent?
Thank you for whoever asked that. That is one of my concerns. I know that executive meetings behind closed doors with just the board has to happen. There are concerns and issues brought by the homeowners, and we don't want to be discussing your personal business, your personal concerns with everybody else in the park. If there's a concern about your neighbor or two neighbors or property condition or past due fees, homeowners dues, not in compliance. Are you going to find someone? Someone's got somebody living with them. And if we don't have all the information, we need to have an opportunity to discuss this openly between the board and then decide the best step and what information does need to be presented to the homeowners. And I do believe that transparency, that's one of my key issues, communication. A little more clear, a little more easy to find, a little more easier to understand, and complete answers with explanations as needed.
I agree that the executive sessions are necessary for all of the reasons that Jackie stated. What I struggle with is if you can't make it to a board meeting, or you can't get to the town hall, or you can't get to a we're listening session for whatever reason, you're sick, you're gone, there's not a good way to get information. If you look at the board minutes, they're a document that exists to document the motions and their approvals, their failures. They're not there to educate you as to the discussion that went on. So I think there does need to be a vehicle for communications between the board and the residents that's a little more informative and speaks to the issues.
Well, executive sessions should be as few as possible, but not bringing up private stuff in the public. I'm a big person I'm a big believer in having a lot of study sessions if we need to, because personally, as a board member, I want to hear from everybody here that is an owner, because as an owner, and I want to make sure that they're all respected and being able to hear whatever your questions are. Maybe we may not be able to answer them all right away, but I know that I listen and I do care, and I will fight to find an answer for you. I would like to see some of the meetings go a little bit longer as far as as far as the regular board meeting. I am looking forward to the town halls being done with our new manager here in the park. And I do hope we see a lot more people coming to those and feeling comfortable to make a suggestion and comfortable speaking. I don't want anybody ever not comfortable speaking or asking a question.
Thank you. So as a current board member, I do acknowledge that it's a reasonable question to ask, and acknowledge that we have had increasing executive sessions. I can state with 100% assurance that the board is very clear on the fact that there are only certain reasons, state statute, that a board can go into executive session. I think one thing that we have not done a good job on is calling that out when we call the meeting. We can only meet for legal or contractual issues, when we're talking about personnel, when we're talking about individual residents, particular financial situation, or if a resident is asking for an appeal, or for discussing delinquencies. The main reason that the board has been meeting, and also all conversation that goes on in a board meeting, is confidential. We, even as board members, cannot discuss something outside of an executive session. So, and the one thing that I bring to the board through my years is having served on the board with Lauren Hansen, in that Lauren Hansen would always be very clear in those meetings that if it's not on the agenda, we don't talk about it. And so I'm very clear in those meetings that if someone wants to bring up another topic, nope, it's not on the agenda. We have a specific agenda when we're going in, and we stick to that. Some of the reasons that we've been meeting has to do with contracts, and this board is also being very, very aggressive as we're handling delinquencies. And so we do have a standard now that after every board meeting, we will have an executive session to go over the prior month's delinquencies. I think that we can do a better job at encouraging people to participate in the listening sessions. And then we also have had in the past some opportunities to create more forums at things like the town meetings. So I look forward to being able to do many of those things.
It's really hard to expand on what Barbara has told us. The importance of the executive meetings is very clear, and I have a great understanding of it. It's strictly for legal, personnel issues, collections, contracts, and management selections when someone is being replaced as a manager. So I have to stand by what Barbara has told you about the meetings, especially the open meeting requirements, that there's notification 48 hours before any business is conducted. Well, I can certainly understand and appreciate the transparency. I believe in that. However, I think that the executive meetings should be not public because you are electing members to represent you. And if you have communications with your board members and they are indeed representing you, you should trust them to make good decisions.
The question that's been posed is a very interesting question and hits to the heart of what I have seen as the hardest part of the job of being a board member. And that is to balance the difference between the need to know and the want to know. I come from the intelligence world and I understand that very well. And in our world, if you don't need to know, you don't try to find out. I can tell you that the executive meetings are the most draining part of this job because I don't want to know your personal business, but I find out more about you in the executive sessions than I ever wanted to know. And I must leave it at the door when I walk out, which hits to the point that Barbara made. And I want to stress this, the need for two things on the board. One is homogeneity, a board that works together. And secondly, confidentiality, being able to trust each other to leave what's discussed inside of that room and to not take it out and put it on Facebook or call your friends and allow them to post it. It simply must be protected for your sake and ours. So while you think you want to know more, you really, really don't. Trust me.
Thank you. We'll start with Cindy Evans on this next question. If you could accomplish one thing during your term, what would it be?
A very vague and very loaded question. One thing, 3 years, okay. I think the biggest thing I would really love to see is that we come away with a strategic plan that reflects what you want for your community, not only today, but down the road from today, 5 years down the road. What do you want Happy Trails to look like? What's going to get us there? Having a plan that is well thought out and then executed and held accountable to. To come back to that, are we making the progress we wanted to make? Are we doing the things we said we would do? I think if we came away with that, I would feel like we accomplished a lot.
Okay, this got a lot of answers to it. But when I was in the fire department, we had a 5-year strategic plan, and that's what we did. However, things change within that matter of time. I would say probably one thing after I went to the BGM meeting the other day is they need a lot of help. We need to get them what they need. We need to get things done. We need to get the roofs done. We need to make sure that we have people that can actually service the things so we don't have to replace them. We don't wait until they croak. We can actually service something throughout the entire year. That's one thing that's really important, and it will also be much more cost saving. Instead of having to buy something that's $5,000, if we can just pay $100 to have it upkept, I think that's much more important. That's a new one, but there's so many things that we really need to do. I'd love to see more committees too. So just short and sweet.
So I agree with Cindy. I mean, obviously, that's why I'm running, and really being able to see this long-range planning becoming something that's really an excellent plan as we move forward. And particularly, we've got a really great budget committee, and we've had great budget committees for a long time. But being able to blend the budget committee and the building grounds and maintenance things that they're working on into the strategic plan, to being able to know how we're going to be able to afford all of these things as we move forward, so that we can continue to make this community everything that we want it to be and all. So I think that a long-range plan is the best thing that we can be focusing in on. I also like to look back at some of the accomplishments that the boards have had over the past, and that both Bill Rhodes and I have think we can take some responsibility for, and that has been the asset improvement fee that goes on. As a result of that, and Bill and I really worked hard at getting that passed throughout the organization. We've been able to add over $1 million to this organization based on home sales through that asset improvement fee, and that's really helping our reserve fund and our financial fund for in the future. So I think that there's lots of stuff that's been done in the past that's really added to our ability to really look at this long range plan now as a real viable thing to occur. Thank you.
There are a number of things that I would like to try to help accomplish. Probably one of the very first things is, because of COVID, we went to virtual meetings. Virtual meetings are a great opportunity for absentee people to see what's being accomplished, what's being addressed, and so forth. But I would really like to bring the board meetings back to having the Monday workshop prior to the board meeting, so that people have an opportunity to digest what it is on the agenda and make decisions that are really rewarding for the community. The other thing that I would like to see accomplished is compliance being enforced a little bit stronger. I think we're starting to go in that direction. We have a new staff in the DRC office now, with 2 people that I believe are going to be able to accomplish this as they become acquainted with our community. BGM, what does that stand for? It stands for building and maintenance. It doesn't stand for building new projects. I think that we have just accomplished a new facilities manager. I think the facilities manager probably has a responsibility in overseeing and helping accomplish taking care of the maintenance issues of the resort. I also believe that the maintenance supervisor should be involved in the BGM meetings, so that we can see what issues he's envisioning that need to be taken care of. Thank you. I have not been a resident for years. I've been a resident for 6 months. I have no particular agenda and represent no special interests. And I do appreciate the things that have happened over the past 30 years to make Happy Trails what it is today. I'm certain that there are issues that will come up, but like I stated before, I'd like to identify, analyze, and then make recommendations. My only hope is that we continue to provide the amenities and the activities that we enjoy right now. Thank you.
I've already hit on one of my goals for the next term, and that is to get back to happy trails and get away from scrappy trails. This Facebook posting, whether it's next door or on our own page, is the only window that people outside of this resort see when they look at Happy Trails. And our residents who are away from Happy Trails are sometimes distressed when they hear and read the things that people post. I wish that each of you as owners would subscribe to some code of conduct as we as board members sign on a code of conduct, not to speak ill will about Happy Trails, but to work together to make it a better place. My other goal would be to finish the projects that we started and not kick the can down the road. The first year I was on the board was one of the most difficult experiences I've had. But the last year that I've been on the board, this year has been one of the most productive, one of the most pleasant, and one of the most enjoyable years that I've had, because people have jumped in, worked on projects, and I believe we're moving forward. And I would like to see us keep that movement forward.
I'd like to accomplish what has been set out in the long-range planning survey. And the reason that's so important is because that's what you want. I don't know that we can fix, accomplish, complete every item in the survey, but I would like to accomplish review, some discussion, and some general thoughts and ideas and some direction for every item in the survey.
Okay, next question. We'll start with Marla on this. I even had the surgery on my eyes too. Okay. Have you any plans to improve safety within the Happy Trails Resort?
Improve safety? Well, I'd like to definitely look at all of our committees and get definitely safety. If we're talking about the roads, I've already called on a lot of people. I've called the Sun City Posse, I've called the sheriff, and I've called the City of Surprise. If that's what we're talking about as far as safety. The problem is we are private citizens, so our private roads, so there's a lot to it, but the officer has not gotten back to me yet. But that is one thing about me. Once I get something in my head, I even have a roofer. But once I get things given to me, I get them done. I am somebody that looks into it, gets it done. I don't wait 6 months or a year. I go for it now. So yes, I'm a big person on safety here, but I also think it comes to all of our residents, and that's including me and everybody up here, that we need to be very careful and vigilant on what we're doing and making sure that we do stop at stop signs. right now.
One of the things that I'm looking forward to in the long-range plan, and I have, don't know whether specifically that might be a question that'll come up in the next phase of it, but the whole issue of stopping at stop signs and speeding has been an issue ever since I've been here. And we've tried many things to try to resolve it, short of using stun guns. There's things that we can do and we can't do because we're a private community. But I really think that sometimes if the right people get together, you can come up with some really silly ideas, which would trigger even better ideas, and then finally trigger something that really is something that we can accomplish. So I'm hoping that the long-range planning process might trigger maybe even more processes to do that. So it's not just the stop signs and the speeding that's an issue. There's also the issue that some residents have regarding their neighbors and unsafe situation that they believe occur from their neighbors. So, you know, we look at change, what can we change? There's really only things we can change in ourselves. We can't change our neighbors' behavior or anything like that, but the board really needs to look at what point does behavior among residents become harassment, in particular harassment of people that are in protective class. And I think that there's things that we can do about that, that we can. So we do look at the community crime map. There really is not as much crime in this community as if you look at other communities, but I do think that maybe we can be asking our patrol staff who are new, a new fresh set of eyes to really look at, are there weaknesses in our community where people might be able to get access to? So lots of things that we possibly can do.
About a week ago, I texted Roberta as the liaison to the patrol committee. I think something that would be valuable to begin improving safety in Happy Trails would be for additional stop signs, particularly on Happy Trails Boulevard. As you enter at the gatehouse, there is one 20-mile-per-hour stop sign, speed limit sign that really is not very visible. The other part of the speed limit advisement needs to come from the patrol as you enter at the gatehouse to specifically let people know that we do have speed limits. It's 20 miles an hour on the main thoroughfares, which would be Happy Trails Boulevard, Roy Rogers, Dale Evans, and Trigger. I think at each intersection of these main roadways, similar to what's happened at Nellie Bell and Roy Rogers with those little button rumble strips to remind people that you are at an intersection that has control. I think it would be interesting to look into installing those at all of the main intersections. I think those would be probably the main things in order to encourage people that we do have some controls of traffic in Happy Trails. I have really no concerns on safety. I feel comfortable at Happy Trails. The only thing that I could identify, I'm both a walker and a golf cart driver. And I do have concerns for walkers and golf carts sharing the golf cart track. Personally, I keep my speed at a minimum. And I don't want to have any incidents. I would recommend to the walkers, like I do, is that you walk against traffic. And that way you'll be able to identify the golf cart that hit you.
Well, there's already been a considerable discussion about compliance with existing rules. And I served the first year as liaison to the safety committee. And I would just like to emphasize one other area. I don't see my good friend Wanda Bean here, but so I'm going to tell you what Wanda would tell you if she was up here. When you park at the post office to collect your mail out of your box, that is a one-way street. When you come into that street from the Horseshoe Pit side, I'm not looking that way and expecting you to come from that direction, whether you're a car or a bicycle. We have had so many near misses. And near misses are near fatalities. We're very fortunate that we have not had a very, very serious accident, injury at that area. So please encourage people not to go the wrong direction up that street. That is one way, and it's that reason, that direction for a reason, and that reason is only safety. One other thing, I would encourage all homeowners to put security cameras on their lots. Those things help deter people from entering your lots because they don't know whether those cameras are on or not, and they're just a matter of deterrence.
Thank you. Next will be Barbara. Oh, we forgot you. Okay, sorry.
I won't let you forget. I'm listening to everyone and I hear about safety. I hear it from friends and people I speak with, acquaintances. I think safety starts with an understanding of why. Why should I stop? Doesn't look like anybody's coming. Why does it matter which way I walk? I can see the cars. When we understand the reason why is for everybody's protection, it's easier to follow the rules of the road anytime you're on any road. Then there's no confusion. I also think that safety will become more important and adhered to as we continue to develop a culture of community. I think that is vital to Happy Trails being happy.
Okay, to piggyback on Jackie, I am the reason why. So let me paint you a picture. I live at the corner of Dale Evans and Tumbleweed. It's a three-way stop. I have to back out of my driveway. My motorhome is parked on that corner. So when you come up Dale Evans and you go to make a right-hand turn onto Tumbleweed, your vision is a little bit blocked. And the other morning I came face to face with a driver who ran that stop sign. So it's up to all of us to stop and protect our friends, our neighbors, and everyone else. I've watched the board struggle with this issue for the 4 years I've been here. There are challenges in how to enforce it. There are challenges in how to encourage people to stop. And I think we'll continue to struggle a little bit with that as we go forward. But for me, please stop.
Okay, now I'm ready. Okay, starting with Barb. Are you going or have you been through the HOA course that is offered in Arizona?
I have been through the previous Surprise HOA Academy that was offered for a number of years. Unfortunately, it's no longer offered. I've attended it for 3 different years. And it's a wonderful program to give you, you get information from legal, you get information from the city, you get information from all sorts of people. So that's one thing that I've done on a formal basis. On a, almost on a monthly basis, I attend webinars that are offered through our attorney, Carpenter Hazelwood. They have workshops available as webinars. You don't need to be a board member to sign up for those. Our current legal firm, pre-COVID, used to always have a workshop for us on a monthly basis. As a board member, we are also given an opportunity to subscribe to what's called the HOA Leader. So there's a lot of opportunities to continue to learn. But the HOA Academy is a very good thing. There's another lawyer in the community by the name of Beth Mulcahy that since COVID has been doing a number of things online, some videos on HOAs, and anyone can attend those. And so I would encourage anyone to look at Beth Mulcahy's website and look for the webinars that she offers.
Well, since they don't offer it anymore, I guess we don't need anybody else to answer this. However, that is all really good, good information. And I think that if we would put that in the Nosy Coyote, or at least let people know that it is available, I think that would be great. Yes, Marla?
I just wanted to say that our Arizona revised statutes, they really supersede a lot. They supersede county, city. So those are very interesting to be reading. So if you have questions, you can just go to the Attorney General site and just look up ARS and just look through the titles and punch in what you may want to see. And because they have a lot on HOAs, although they are not responsible unless it becomes a financial issue. That's the only way. Otherwise, the HOAs, it's kind of hard to actually monitor them via somebody else. So that's it.
Does anybody else have any comments on this? Yes, Ron?
Yes, I'd like to comment, follow up on what Barb mentioned about the HOA leader. As a board member, you get an opportunity to receive additional insight on selected topics from experts from across the country. And you can do this at your home, or you can do it collectively with other board members in the Manzanita room. And those have been very useful in helping us understand topics that are of essence to being a better board member. Also, there's another forum that we've had in the past, and that is the East Valley HOA gathering with other groups basically over in the Mesa area. And we would like to see something started in the West Valley area with Surprise and Peoria and Glendale, that sort of thing, to see if we could get something going over here with HOAs exchanging challenges and solutions.
That's great. That would be good.
I would like to comment on this, if you please.
Yes.
I have attended the HOA Academy twice, and it's a very fruitful, rewarding experience to learn how a board member should react to different issues. Also, the West Valley does have a meeting monthly, and at that meeting, the rewarding part about that is that all other HOA entities that come to that meeting, you get an opportunity to see what issues they're facing that might be similar to what you're doing and what they are accomplishing. Also, our attorney usually attends that meeting, and annually he gives a report on the new legislative things that are coming up and so forth. Also, the city of Surprise annually has meet the directorship of the city, and they offer a lot of information as to what the city's trying to accomplish and how an HOA can improve their station.
Thank you. Any other comments? This is good, all good information. Wouldn't you agree? I don't know who wrote that question, but I hope that helped. Okay. Okay, the next question, and we'll start with Bill. What critical maintenance issues need to be addressed in the next 2 years? and how would they be funded?
I have a huge laundry list of that, and I wanted to make that part of my presentation when we met with your committee. Um, Better control of the Walgreen Gate, for instance. Rumble strips on the main intersections, return the reserve fund responsibility to the facilities manager. Review assessment policies for the CCNRs. I would like to affect a process going forward whereby it's mandatory that a caretaker be acknowledged for each property in the property owner's absence. I would like to, as I mentioned before, instruct patrol to give speed limit requirements for Happy Trails. And I would also like to accelerate the electronic gate key access process in order that management and the association can control the facilities to a better effect. Thank you.
I don't have a lot of knowledge on maintenance issues. The only one that I've experienced is the gate on Roy Rogers. I live very close to that gate, and when I'm leaving here and that gate's not available, or when I'm coming back and that gate's not available, it's a long ways around. But other than that, I have no knowledge. I'm certain there are, and I'm certain if I'm elected that I will learn about them.
Vicki, could you clarify, did you say maintenance or main issues? Maintenance? Okay. I would strongly concur with the Walgreens gate issue and all of our gate issues. It's difficult to keep those gates functioning properly. We have been more successful now that we've got the cameras working in identifying people who run into the gates. We've even been successful in collecting some money from insurance to help us repair those gates. And I think that that's germane to all of us because we all like to feel at least a sense of security. We refer to this as a gated community, but it's really not. You can walk into this community from at least 2 or 3 different directions, and people do all of the time. I really believe that there are a number of issues that are underway now. I applaud BGM for encouraging the board to put the money into revitalizing the Cascades building. We did push that project down the road a little bit further. We do need a new maintenance building itself, and we need to, more than anything, continue to fund our reserves so that the money is there when these projects come due. The overwhelming price tag of putting roofs on buildings and finishing our road projects in this inflationary time means that our reserves have got to be funded to the maximum extent we can possibly afford.
I'd like to see our budget set so that we don't have critical maintenance, something that has to be done right now, but we may not have the money to do that. So I agree the importance of maintaining our reserves. I also think on things like the gate, the 2 side gates, and other electrical repairs that maintain our security and our safety. Stock up, have a backup, have your supplies on hand. We should have a backup for both gates in parts and supplies not waiting for an accident and then have to wait for the supplies to be shipped. I know in this day and age that can take months, and you think, well, just order the part. Took me 6 months to get a part for my car. So those are the kind of things that we should have on hand. And what are those things? There's a committee to review that and make those proposals.
First, I'm going to admit I'm not a buildings, grounds, and maintenance type of person, but I do live in Happy Trails, and I do know that we are an aging community with an aging infrastructure that needs to be addressed. And as everybody here has said, that takes money. Takes money in the reserves so that when the item breaks, we've got the money to replace it, repair it, do what we need to do to it. Let me back up. Reserves don't fund repairs, they fund replacement. But I think it's absolutely critical that we pay attention to our reserves, that we, as others have said, fund them to the maximum, and that we're ready to deal with this aging infrastructure and be able to get to the point to be proactive about it instead of reactive.
Vicki, can you read the question just again, please?
What critical maintenance issues need to be addressed in the next 2 years? And how will they be funded?
Well, critical, I would say the roofs, because from what I understand from the meeting the other day, the roofs have not been completed. So, and they were looking maybe 2 to 3 years, and anybody, Mike or somebody up here can correct me, but that's what I heard. I do think that there is, and depending on how our maintenance crew, what they fix and what their abilities are, they did mention in the BGM meeting that we may need somebody that can actually upkeep some of the stuff that we have around here instead of waiting for the very last moment and it's critical, we need it done and we can't get it done. We have to wait and wait and wait. So I guess it's kind of like each of us that have our homes, we have somebody come out to check our ACs. We have to do certain things just to upkeep the home. That's what we need for here. And we need to make sure that we help the BG&M. There's many different areas that we need to go to, but for me, that would be something that's been going on for quite a while now. And as far as funding it, I don't really want to see any special assessments yet, because that how we need to look into the budget and need to look into the BG&M committee and what they have and need. Prioritize.
It is a difficult situation. We don't want to be in the boat that the folks in Florida were with the condo that came down because there was a deferred maintenance. And over the years, we are not aware of the amount of deferred maintenance that has gone on in this community. The budget committee and the BG&M and we as board members are aware of some deferred expenses that we haven't done in the reserve study because we've put them off thinking we don't need to do that today. I mean, those are typical things like maybe not buy new furniture, maybe not upgrade this. But as fact is that our infrastructure, both in our buildings and in the land that we walk on, are things that we really need to be paying attention to. And much of that is invisible. We don't know the costs that will be associated with it. The budget committee is really encouraging us, and we will be following through on that, of increasing the amount of dollars that are going from our monthly association dues into the reserve fund so that we can have the money that's available, and continuing that with the asset improvement fee. We'll need more information to really find out what are those invisible costs of deferred maintenance that we haven't done. But things are costing a lot more money than they ever have in the past, and we need the dollars to support that.
Okay. Bill, did you answer that? You answered that question, didn't you? Oh, okay, Gary, how do you differentiate between the role of a board member and that of the general manager of Happy Trails? If you can give us an example of that, how do you differentiate between the role of a board member and the community manager? What's your position and what is their position?
Okay, I'm not sure if I totally understand that, but I think that in my opinion, the board will represent the residents and they will make recommendations and probably hold the management responsible. Other than that, I really have no direct experience with that.
Thank you, whoever asked that question. I think that's a very germane question. And I think that when you have a good community manager, a good resort manager, that the resort manager's responsibility is to manage the resort. And the board should stay out of the managing of the resort and leave that to the manager. The board works with the manager to provide guidance, to set policy, to coordinate with the owners. But it is the manager's job by nature of the title to manage. I've been liaison to the Chuck Wagon. The manager is the manager of the Chuck Wagon. So it would not be my function to go to the Chuck Wagon and listen to what they have to say and interface with a customer or something like that. The answer is fill out a form and comment and get that back to the manager. The people who have leased the Chuck Wagon work for the manager, and that is clearly defined in their contract. And we let the manager manage and we let the board direct.
Very well said. I would like, I see it as the property manager is the people with expertise in managing properties. The board would like to act on behalf of the homeowners and do ABC. Well, nobody on the board knows how to do ABC. Is this a good idea? How does it work? What's it going to cost? Let's get the property manager in on that discussion and ask them their experience. How does this work? How does it work somewhere else? Is this feasible for us? And get feedback from people who are property manager specialists. We represent the people as the board, people, the homeowners, as the board. We take that information to the property managers and learn from them and work together.
I'm not sure I can say it any better than Ron did. The board exists to govern, to set budget, to set direction, and to work with the property manager in discussion about how that's going to get done. It's not our job to be the property manager. Frankly, don't want to be that person. I was that person for 25 years, and I always appreciated the fact that the board would help determine the direction, the budgets, give me the parameters to work within, and then leave me alone while I got things done. So I guess that's my viewpoint on it. I don't want to be telling the property manager what to do on a daily basis. No, thank you.
Well, the board of directors basically oversee the manager. They don't micromanage. They allow that person to do their job. But the board is for the CCNRs, for the rules and regulations. They also are to make committees, which are very, very important. And that's not something that the city manager is in charge of. They've got a lot of jobs to do. So the difference between that is just the board oversees the HomeCo employee, which would be our manager. And the board is to listen to the people, take comments from the people, and to work with the people to try to do our best in creating better rules, regulations, and CCNRs that are viable. And we're able to get that done via legally. So.
I agree with everything everybody said. Simply, the board sets policy, period. We don't manage. We hire a management team to do that. And what we need in any management team is that people have clear understanding of what their role is and what their scope is, and not try to get one person to ask a board member to micromanage. We have the benefit of having a management team that's very clear on that and can very much say, this is my job, this is your job. And so that's really very nice. So the role of the board is to set policy, period.
Everyone has fairly well mentioned the relationship between the board and management. It is absolutely specifically clear in the CCNRs, section 5.3, what the manager has the responsibility for. Also, it's very, very clear in the code of conduct what the relationship is between the board and management.
Okay, starting with Ron. When a homeowner requests something from a department, whether it be DRC or whatever, and they are turned down per the rules and the CCNRs, they are advised they can ask the board for a variance. What is your view of variances in general?
Wow. Did I get the hot button issue or what? That's going to come up. It has come up. It will continue to come up. My position on variances is this. The variances should be issued sparingly, and that the board should consider seriously the recommendations, particularly with architectural things, of the DRC. The DRC is there to provide a guideline to the homeowner on what they can do within the rules that are established. To ask for a variance for every issue that you want is to put the DRC and the compliance officer into a vice in which they are obligated to follow the rules, and yet they can understand your personal point of view. So my view on variances is, if you're a board member, you need to go out and look at that situation and decide for yourself how that variance should be considered. And again, remember, everything that is approved and everything that is done is going to affect new or potential owners' perceptions of what is allowed in Happy Trails. And the thing that will come up is, you've allowed someone else to do it, so how can you tell me no? But if it's against the rules, it's against the rules, and we need to stick to that as much as we possibly can.
Sometimes I would like to have the letter Z for my last name. On the variances, my first thought is whatever the issue is that's being reviewed, that committee, that group, that department should be doing due diligence in reviewing all of the aspects of what the homeowner is requesting. Make sure that the language is clear between the two entities, review what's been done in the past, the decision maker then makes that decision and also offers a clear explanation for why the decision was made. I do hear homeowners say, I want hanging sparkles from my, I want something, and somebody else has it, and now they're telling me no. As long as you've got an explanation for why one was a yes and yours is no, and it's fair and according to the rules, then sometimes that's just the way it is. So I think it's pursuing the matter before you make a decision and then making it very clear why you made the decision.
When the exceptions become the rules will cease to matter, which doesn't bode well for us here at Happy Trails. So I think that the board has done a reasonable job in reviewing the variance requests and handling them. And I think that going forward, I think that same approach, I really applaud Ron. I've heard him say many times, I've gone out, I've looked at this, here's my suggestion. So I hope I can do that. I hope you give me that opportunity to do that. But like I say, if, oops, there we go. Since become the rule, then the rules won't matter.
So far, everybody said something wonderful. Again, variances, it really depends, and that is basically up to, well, it was Mike, but now up to Bradley and his committees and so on and so forth, and then eventually bringing it to the board. But when my husband and I lived in Prescott, we went to the board. We tried to get, we wanted to put in, with our architectural committee, we wanted to put in white vinyl fencing because we had horse property. So when we did that, there was already white vinyl fencing in our developments, but we were denied because they told us it was reflective. So we had a challenge. We didn't go through with it. We just put up chain link fence. But that would be something, because it was already in the area, would be grandfathered in. We didn't fight it. It was cheaper to go with the chain link anyway, but so again, it's something that our DRC handles, and they did a great job. They do a great job. So.
This really is a difficult question. The simple answer is that I think variances should be kept to a minimum and that they be for specific realistic reasons. I challenge the board sometimes about that we need a policy on variances. Maybe that's not the right word, but at least have some conversation about in what situations might a variance be allowed. In what situation is it a hard no? Because there are few times when that exception might be appropriate. But as Cindy said, I think that she's absolutely spot on. If the exceptions become the rule, then there's no rules. The issue that I think we also need to recognize is that there's been a lot of exceptions over the last 30 years. You would not have those 17 or 15, whatever feet tall Arizona rooms out there if there hadn't been some exceptions made. 30 years ago, you were allowed to have a 120-foot shed on your property, but people started stretching the rules, and then it became the norm, and then it was okay. I have a snuggle wide. Snuggle wides were not allowed in here for the longest time. Now they are allowed in. So it really, I think, is that we always need to be looking forward as to really what our community wants, but then what's the line in the sand? In that I have a picture that a friend sent to me that's happened in another community that I think people would really not want that here. And so what we really need to define, what's the line in the sand? And so I think we need to do that, but we also need to keep variances to a minimum. And I think maybe that it's one request per and not the same people asking for the same thing over and over again and being turned down over and over again.
Variances are a legal process that allows people to bring forward
a question to a board or to management. However, Happy Trails has in the past received legal opinion very strongly as to where variances should be applied and where they should be avoided. And as mentioned before by other members up here, once a variance is applied, after a number of times, it becomes the rule.
Yes, there's been a lot of good comments. I would also advocate that if the request for a variance is a reasonable one, that maybe should investigate changing the rules. Because as has been repeated here many times, the variance ends up being the rule.
Okay, I mentioned earlier about the Chuck Wagons / Sanctuary Cafe, that there are a number of questions up here. But there is one, we need one more question because we have time. So this one here is, which scenario do you prefer, outside operation or volunteers? Jackie?
I think that's the hardest question that's been asked. Which do I prefer? I'm not a restaurant manager, owner. I've never been a server. I have volunteered in food service for volunteer organizations and whatnot. So I know what it's like a little bit to operate a food service place. Both have merits. I have not been here when there was volunteer operated, and the only outside management has been the Chuck Wagon. I would have to go with what's been successful in the past. I've heard that there was another form of operation, maybe another outside entity that had been here. And I've also heard that the volunteers have done a very good job. I think that just needs to be weighed on the presentation that either one make and review their particular objective.
Ouch. Oh dear. So having an all volunteer run Chuck Wagon is no small task. The number of volunteers needed on every shift is quite large and has to be managed by someone. It was a full-time job for Becky and I last year just to do breakfast. I think there's a happy medium in there somewhere. I'm not sure exactly what that is. I love having the volunteers. I love being a volunteer. Not everybody shares my passion. So I think my preference is to have a restaurant that operates well and provides a service to our resort.
So outside operations or volunteers. As a business owner, it would be nice to have it being run other than volunteers, because not always can volunteers show up, their health, there's just a lot to do. I have been involved in service. I've been involved in baking, cooking, serving large groups of over 400 people. But what I'm concerned about more than anything is to make sure that we get somebody that is solidly business and know what they're coming into. We are a senior community. There are going to be different issues and they need to handle whoever it might be, needs to handle them professionally. I would have liked to have seen, now this is just all I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen at least 5 or 6 people come in, maybe the top 5 or 6 picks, and see what they had to offer with their food. I'm not saying anything bad about who's here right now. This is just the question I was asked. As far as volunteering, I tried to volunteer, but they had the young men to come in. So it's very hard to volunteer inside a business because there's a lot of legal repercussions. Because if the person falls, you're going to be responsible for them. So there's a lot of issues to look at. So if we can find somebody that knows what, oh, okay, sorry, I have to be done. 30 seconds. Oh, yeah. So once again, I'm not saying anything negative about what we have right now. I'm not going to say negative or positive, but I'm going to say outside operations. I know we had quite a few people that wanted to come in. I still would have liked to seen what they had to give our community. Because that means a lot. And making sure that they're professional. I do think that our citizens here in the community are allowed to speak and give their opinion because they live here. You live here. I live here. So we're allowed to do that. And I think we should not be told not to do that.
Kind of like Cindy, this is kind of an ouch one for me since I've been part of this. This is a difficult either or situation, and it'd be nice if there was more of a both and opportunity. I've been here long enough and have volunteered in the chuck wagon for a number of years, both as a pots and pans person, as a cashier, and working the dining room. And I've eaten many of Bob Wells' absolutely wonderful omelets. Makes the best in the world. Over a year this last October, I led a town meeting where we talked about the possibilities of staying where we're at or staying where, or going to an outside entity for a number of reasons. And I think that town meeting was received. We learned a lot of information. And for me, the biggest thing that we learned is that what you wanted was a place that was the heart of the community where friendships are made. And that's where you saw the chuck wagon, the heart of the community where friendships are made. And what we're trying to do is to figure out, can we do that? We know that the number of volunteers, all well-meaning, has decreased over the years. Many people sign up that they want to volunteer, but when push comes to shove, there's other things that get in their life being able to do that. So being able to have a blend would also be nice. But if we can still look at having this be the heart of the community where friendships are made, that I think that's important.
When it comes to volunteers or to outside, in other words, outsourcing, I personally prefer the volunteer process if you can encourage people to want to be involved. Every committee we have is volunteer. Every board member up here is a volunteer. We've tried outsourcing in a couple of areas in Happy Trails that was very unsuccessful, and one was security. Once you outsource to a company outside of the community, that contract becomes very specific, and if there's anything outside of what's described, you've lost control. I'm very much not in favor of outside entities.
I applaud volunteers. It's a great thing. I don't know about the history of the chuck wagon, and it's too late to make a conclusion on the present and future of the chuck wagon. But I do belong to another organization that was totally volunteer, trying to provide food and beverage service. And it is a total disaster. And the reason being that it seems that every one of the volunteers wants to be in charge. And you can't have that because you end up with just a miserable situation. And since it seems that we're talking about the sanctuary, I applaud it. I was happy to hear that they were going in. I personally, I'm not a cook. I'm thankful that God created restaurants, and I hope that they will be successful. I'm part of their frequent flyers program already, and pretty soon I'm going to get a free meal there. So the old saying that there is no such thing as a free lunch, it's not true.
Well, my involvement here with the Chuck Wagon began as a volunteer. And I met many of you as a volunteer. And as a result of that, with encouragement, I decided to run for the board. And I inherited the job of liaison to the Chuck Wagon. And I can tell you that, first of all, I echo everything that Barb said about the process that we went through and what we heard from you as a board. And we tried to stay with the volunteer process as much as we could, but the number of volunteers that are required and the future going forward does not portend well for trying to support the Chuck Wagon with volunteers. Our younger people are coming in here and they're saying, I work very hard, I retired young, I do not intend to volunteer and work for free. I will pay more, and as a result of that, get me something that I like and I will be willing to support it. The question is the price point. And we went through an agonizing process between the realtor that we retained and Chef Jerry, who works for Homeco, to try to find someone that we could offer a lease to that could meet a price point that would provide a quality product at a reasonable price that our people could afford and would support. I want the Chuck Wagon. I want the current lease to succeed. But I'm not so anchored in it that I believe it has to succeed at any cost. But we will work our best through that situation. Nothing has caused me more sleepless nights than the Chuck Wagon, believe me.
With that being said, I think we all better go have lunch, huh? Are you hungry? One thing I would like to let you know is that your ballots will be mailed if you are here in the resort and you have filled out a form that says homeowner arrival form, or if you've always been here and you haven't left, then what we will be doing is we'll be putting your ballot, which will be in your mailbox in the mail center next Friday, January the 20th. Okay. And so if you please remember to read everything very carefully. Your ballot is on this blue form, and be sure that you only vote, like it says on here, for 3 director positions. If you vote 3 times for one person, it's invalid. If you vote for more than 3, it's invalid. If you don't fill out your name, your lot number, and signature like you do for the government, it's invalid. So please, we're really working hard at making sure that your vote does count. And by following the instructions, your vote will count, okay? And you are welcome to come for the vote tabulation. When we do that, it's all in the e-blasts that are going out, but you can't talk, okay? If you talk, you're kicked out, okay? But anyway, I'd like to thank all 7 of you for coming today and answering these difficult questions. And if you have more questions for any of these candidates, please ask them. Don't be afraid to go up and ask them. They're more than happy to answer it for you, okay? So I'd like to thank you, and next Tuesday, we're doing another Meet the Candidate forum from 6 to 8. So you're more than welcome to come to that, because I'm sure we'll have more questions, different ones, okay? And, oh, I know who they are. I know who he is. Yes. The ballot is due on February the 17th, and that is on your form too. And we are sending it out every single week, the